All right, I want to talk with you for a moment about a struggle that's going on in my classroom right now. My period 4-5, it's a split class, so that there's whatever for whatever reason in our school doesn't really, it's not germane to this conversation, but the class has got two names to it, so it's period 4, period 5, and right now they're really struggling. Um, Over here, I've got a screen cap from their grade book of their grades a week ago. And of course, this is just unacceptable. This is the bottom half of the class, by the way. There are 13 students above this with B's and A's, but you can see the 13 bottom students that the grades were really, really poor. Now, there are some particularly catastrophic circumstances going on here. Like, for instance, this student down here with the 17%. This student has, I think, been in class, oh gosh, half a dozen days so far out of, 6 weeks or whatever. So this student's averaging about a day a week in school. So obviously, there's not much I can do about that. I've reached out to the family and sent emails and worked with the attendance office, and there's something going on with this young man's life that he's not here. The rest of these students, though, these 30% all the way up to, the 60% here, these are students that are more or less attending school. There's one more young man in here that's got serious attendance issues. He misses a couple of days a week. But the other students have been here. We just have some really particularly difficult circumstances. We've had 4 incidents of drug-related activities within the young men in this group of students. And we've got just a variety of other behavioral and educational issues that have prevented them, as you can see, from succeeding. Now, normally, I teach a large portion of students that have learning challenges, and so I'm very used to that. I've always in the past had a co-teacher in here with me, another licensed teacher, and I've used that co-teacher very effectively to prevent the kind of results that we see here. So usually, in any given semester, I'll have 2 to 3, maybe 4 students total out of 75 or 80 that will fail the course. And the reason that we're able to get so many students to pass is we just don't allow failure. We have a variety of interventions that we use to prevent that from happening. However, this year, this semester rather, for reasons that are just idiosyncratic, I do not have any help, really at all. And so I'm having to reinvent and rethink about how I provide, opportunities for these students to succeed and the structure that they need. So this particular class, period 4-5, is definitely an outlier. My period 2 and my period 9 classes are still being very successful. We have the grades are where we want them to be. Student achievement is high, but with this class, I decided to reboot everything. And so on Monday this week, we went back into rows. We put the computers away, and we really worked on some foundational culture building things. Raising your hand, making sure your name is on your paper. So it was very teacher centered. It was not based in inquiry at all. It was very much direct instruction, but it was very concrete, sequential. It was very clear and easy to follow. And I made a deal with the students. I wrote them a letter and talked to them about why we were doing this. In fact, let me just bring the letter up here. I should be able to show this to you really fast if you're interested. Let's see. Letter to period 4-5. So I wrote them this letter a few days ago and just sort of explained, where I was coming from and talked to them about what the data for their class looked like, and showed them that it didn't have to be this way. I showed them my period 2 class, and then we just discussed some steps we were going to take in the future. So we were going to follow these essential agreements that we have in our classroom. And by the way, our essential agreements are right up here. These are the things we agreed to do. So it's starting to make a lot of progress, as you can see. The number of Fs are still relatively high. We've gone from 8 to 7, but as you can see, Now 4 of those Fs are within striking distance. They're within an assignment or 2 of moving up to Ds. We've eliminated the Ds altogether, and those have moved up to Cs, right? Several of the Cs have moved up to Bs. As you can see, our overall percentage in the class was at 71%, I think, when this all started. Yeah, it was a 71.81% last week at the beginning of these interventions, and now we're up to a 76%. So what's the moral of the story? Is the moral of the story that you should have your kids sit in rows and you should, read to them aloud and make them fill in a worksheet, and not have an inquiry-based classroom? I don't think that's the moral of the story. I think the moral of the story is that I inherited a group of students and I made too many assumptions about where they were developmentally, and that they were prepared to pick up where my last semester students had left off. And I forgot that it was kind of like the first day of school for those students. They were not accustomed to the way that I teach, which is very student-centered and inquiry-based. And that requires some discipline. Not discipline in the sense that, don't talk or don't move around the room, or traditional. I mean, discipline in terms of personal work ethic, that, the teacher isn't going to just give you the answer. The answers are going to need to be discovered by you. You're going to need to be creative in your problem solving. You're going to need to try multiple things before you find a path to success. Again, real world application stuff that, coming up K through 8, and in many instances, they have not been encouraged or allowed to do. So I guess the moral of the story for me was I made some assumptions, and that was wrong. I had to go back and reinvent the culture of the classroom. And I guess I just wanted to share this with you because, I've been at this for 13 and a half years now. And, people often tell me that I'm quote unquote a good teacher. But even with all that experience, you still will run into situations that you have made errors or mistakes, and that you need to take a hard look in the mirror and figure out what you need to do as the leader to make changes. I call my classes teams rather than classes. Again, I think it's just more sort of real world and how we think of environments that we're preparing students for. And I tell them I'm their coach, and obviously we weren't getting many W's. We were taking a lot of L's under the old system, and as the coach, I needed to make some changes. Now, my A students are upset about this. They're upset that they've lost some of their freedom and some of their ability to sort of design their own learning experiences. And I've been very upfront with them, and I say, I understand your frustrations, but I'm asking them to also understand that, we can't move together forward as a team if we're leaving half of the students behind. And so we need to take a week or so and recalibrate things, and then hopefully bring the rest of the team with us as we move, steps into the future. So this week, while period 2 and period 9 are going to jump into that website designing Explorer project that I showed you, I'm going to do slightly differently. It's going to be more structured. I'm going to go more slowly with this period 4-5. And again, hopefully begin to slowly let out the leash a little bit and give them some more of that freedom to inquire and work together and social learning and all that stuff. A little bit more of that freedom back, with the understanding that, they know where I'm coming from and what my expectations are. So I don't know if any of that makes sense to you, but I thought it might be good for you to hear that. All right. Thank you for listening.